Welcome to the ultimate battle to the death to see who will become the king of the hill. Today we have the British versus the French, both trying to outmaneuver each other to claim and hold a strategic hilltop. So let's see what's going to happen. So the forces are pretty equal. I think the British have one extra artillery piece this time, and the French have an extra infantry. So yeah, pretty balanced forces. We rolled a dice just to determine what units we would get. So we've got a tally, and that's how we determine the numbers. Deployment for this game, there's a strategic hill in the centre. Both sides started with one unit on the table. They could choose which they wanted, and that could be up to 12 centimetres in.
Just a shot of the game, artillery versus cavalry, did 1 point of damage.
So turn one was basically manoeuvre. We just moved troops up the field. I brought on an artillery piece, and he brought on an infantry, two infantry and an artillery piece. I had my cavalry and an artillery piece.
So at the end of turn 2, we've both got reinforcements coming on. French 2 infantry, 1 artillery. The artillery took a hit this turn, as did the infantry. And on the British side, the cavalry missed to be shot at, and we brought on 2 artillery pieces to try and put a bit of fire down.
You can see the French coming on in the same old style, so I suppose we'd better meet them in the same old style with artillery. So again, the first couple of turns it was all about just trying to get troops to the hill. Pretty simple.
Artillery. Long range on artillery. Cool. 2. 1 point of damage. Artillery on artillery. 3 of round up, so 2 points of damage. Second artillery firing on dragoons. It's 3.
So turn 2 saw him bring on some cavalry, whilst I brought on an extra infantry regiment. In our game, if artillery don't have direct line of fire, then we do have a rule that allows us to roll a dice, and on a 1, 2 or 3 you can't shoot, and on a 4, 5 or 6 you can, so you can sort of use it like howitzer effect to get over obstacles to hit the enemy.
Artillery. Artillery on artillery, okay, long range. Okay, cool. Oh, 4. Cool. So still only 1 unfortunately because of long range. Firing back. 5. 2. Artillery on cavalry. There's 1 point of damage.
So by turn 3 the movement was starting to play out, and we could start to see where the battlefield was really going to take place. But it was still sort of manoeuvre at this stage with a few long-range artillery shots doing a little bit of damage and disorder, but not much.
Okay, so artillery on artillery.
Okay.
Yeah, long range. 1 more. Okay, artillery on artillery. That's 1 more. This range artillery into cavalry. 4.
So with our rules, the way that we've got them is the units have health, we class this as cohesion, and that takes into effect their health, their disorder, their fatigue, etc. And so once they get down to 0, the unit's no longer effective and falls apart and leaves the field. It's not necessarily that they've been reduced down to 0 men, it's just that the unit no longer can function, so that's why it's removed.
Short range artillery on artillery. 4. Firing back. 3 minus 2, so that's going to be 1. Yeah, and then artillery on cavalry, short range. 2.
So turn 5 sees the French definitely taking the hill first, whilst the British slowly come along. My cavalry were positioned there and did quite well to slow him up for a time, but then once his cavalry arrived, I was no longer in a position to charge his infantry, which then gave him confidence to manoeuvre them onto the hilltop.
3 minus artillery on infantry. 2. Infantry firing onto infantry. 2. and 2. Short range against cavalry. Does 1.
So now turn 6 saw my troops started to get into their position. A couple of his units here did rout his artillery piece and one of the infantry. They'd just taken a bit too much for pounding, so they did break. But overall he was still in a strong position, whilst my right was kind of tied up waiting for his cavalry, so I couldn't really optimise my movements.
Ooh, 5. -1 because he's in column, but still 4. Infantry on infantry. Does 3 points of damage. 5 rolled. Brunswickers firing into these chaps. Onto infantry, short range. 3, so that's 1. Grape shots on cavalry. 4, 5, 6.
It was at this stage that his cavalry did actually charge. He had to take a blast of grape shot coming in, and my Scottish troops fired a volley as well, so that did damage his horsemen. And then in the melee, my lancers, who were relatively unscathed, got the better of him, and his unit of dragoons were broken. Unlucky for him, but luckily for me, otherwise that could have really destroyed my battle plan. Apart from that, my troops just kept marching forwards, as did his. Now in turn 8, having broken his cavalry, my lancers charged and went for his infantry, whilst his infantry on top of the hill fell back into the woods, so I had to assault him with the bayonet to try and clear him out.
And line infantry firing onto them. So that's 2, because it's -1 for the woods, and 3, so that's 5 total. Doing 3 points of damage. Artillery firing onto the hilltop. That's going to be short range. So that's 3. That's going to be 1, only 1.
And in turn 9 the game was pretty well over. My cavalry had broken his regiment, and then they rode on and rode down his skirmishers, or light infantry, whilst the sort of combined might of really 3 of my regiments overpowered his troops in the woods, and that was the end of the game. I did lose my Scots, my jocks, as they were meleeing the troops in the forest, so I did take a lot of casualties, but did come out on top. What we tend to have found now is that usually the player that wins is the one that concentrates their artillery, and at this time I was able to use my artillery slightly, well, I think I got better dice rolls, and that's probably what gave me the game, but it was a good battle, a hard one, could have gone either way right up until the end, so very enjoyable. I have been asked by a few people about the rules. They're not quite finished. Every game we are sort of testing and adjusting little bits, but as soon as they are done, or at least slightly more developed than they are now, then I will start doing a review of them so that you guys can get a bit of a better idea of what we're doing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the game. Please leave any comments down below, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.